Okay, so why don't we get started, and then people might filter in, but we'll they can catch up. So welcome to the second to the last Rockware lecture series lecture for this fall. I'm happy to introduce Huang, who's, I think I pronounced your name right.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, good. She's from the iSchool here at the U of I, and she does a lot of things with human-computer, human-robot interaction. And she'll be talking today about chatbots and incorporating AI into those kind of systems.
Okay.
Go ahead and start now.
Sure. So we have total 1 hour, right? I'll leave some minutes for Q&A. Yeah.
Yeah, right around an hour,
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Huang. I'm a assistant professor in the School of Information Sciences, and I'm co-director of the Social Computing System Lab, the SOC Lab. And so I'm an HCI human-computer interaction scholar. I'm very passionate on designing and implementing and evaluating technologies that can engage different stakeholders to co-create new services for general community well-being. My research is highly interdisciplinary. Often we apply a design science research methods, which we first identify real-life challenges, and then we create new software artifacts that are designed to address these kind of challenges. And then we apply HCI human-centered methods to study how people use these software artifacts. And then we draw theories from social psychologists to understand the impact and the implications of potential long-term use of these technologies. So today I'm going to share some of our recent work, my lab's recent work on designing conversational AI to provide guidance on people's skill training. And so I'm aware that many campus stakeholders are designing conversational technologies for better servicing the students and improving their learning experience or mental health, etc. So I'm hoping what I'm sharing here may be interesting to you, and potentially we can identify mutual interest and explore collaboration opportunities. So first, before I talk about our work on the conversational AI, I'd love to introduce or briefly talk about what is conversational AI. So here we see an example. If you shop using Amazon, often if you want to reach out to customer services, you will be able to guide to this interface. This you can see is text-based. It provides you buttons, and then you can click through. You can text, and then the technology understand what your inquiry are, and then they may direct you to human operators, or they may provide you service to address your question already. So this particular technology is a chatbot-enabled technology. It uses natural language and text so that you don't have to. Many times you can start with your inquiry without interacting with human agents. And in this case, it has buttons and menu provided. Those are very commonly used in e-commerce situation. And then here you can see there are other type of interface or interaction design. You can have voice-based, you can have this kind of free-formed conversation interface. In this case, the left button shows you some of simple dialogue, which could be keyword-based, which means that the chatbot itself already, or the conversation agent itself already have some predefined concepts or context that based on what you type in this conversation, your text, they can extract the keywords, or they can understand your intent in this conversation. And then they can provide you the predefined answers or replies. The other type of conversational AI will be more contextual based, in the sense they can grow their conversation context, or they can grow their responses but through the conversation. So that is more like AI based, more hard to control sometimes. So in this case, I'm going to introduce our work more towards this rule-based, this keyword-based chatbot. So conversational AI is regarded as one of the promising technologies, and it is actually disrupting in every industry. From this figure, you can tell that 90% of the e-commerce industry will be adopting chatbots by the end of 2024, and followed by insurance, healthcare, retail, etc. These industries. So this is mainly because chatbot can provide fast and convenient and low-cost communication channel. For example, they can be available 24 hours, 7 days, and they can deal with 80% of the routine questions if you customize it right. And it can reduce global business cost by 1.3 trillion. And also they can cut response time, right? So if human representatives are not available, and the chatbot machine, the algorithm can respond immediately, right? And also it can provide consistent languages, consistent messages through compared to different human representatives, they may give you inconsistent replies. So there is a growing body of research dedicated to chatbots or conversational AI. They're useful. People already, scholars already show evidence that this kind of technologies can help people maintain good lifestyles, maybe collect the daily health information to share with their service providers, and also can guide people to practice different skills. For example, there are works about helping chatbots designed for helping college students to practice public speaking skills, or to cope with negative thoughts and feelings, and by logging and explaining their moods in the chatbot with the chatbot. So here is an example. You can imagine like our university has more than 50K students, right? So it's very hard to provide one-on-one coaching or counseling services to those students, mainly because whenever you provide these services to them, you need to understand the individual student situation. So it relies on their self-disclosure, which is defined as a process in which a person reveals their personal or sensitive information to others. So this sensitive information could be about the person's experience, personal experiences, their thoughts, their opinions. And on the one hand, reveal or self-disclosure can help the people release their own stress and can improve their own own reflection, and can raise their awareness, and also help the service providers to understand their situation and provide the suggestions or guidance more appropriately. But on the other hand, social psychology have been studying this a lot extensively, and based on social penetration theory, when people self-disclose to others, it can be examined from two perspectives. One is the breadth, which is demonstrated by how broad the topics you share with others, and can be also by the depth of the topic, self-disclosure, which is like how much sensitive information you share with others. So typically this self-disclosure process moves from shallow content, let's say talking about weather and schoolworks, to more deeper level, let's say your thoughts, personal feelings, even political opinions and life challenges. And also it takes time for build trust between two people, and then two persons, and then such that we can conduct more deeper self-disclosure. So this particular challenge motivated us to study how to design the conversational AI or chatbot that can facilitate people's self-disclosure. And then even though prior works showed that the potential to coach users to learn new practice and to learn new skills is possible, but here in this case, several limitations still remain. For example, people may lose interest in this kind of process, interacting with the chatbot, and also may not following the chatbot suggestions. So in the remainder of this talk, I'm going to share several studies we conducted on improving the human chatbot interaction and improving users' perceived engagement with the chatbot, and also their trust with the chatbot, and also the long-term effect of using chatbot on their own well-being in general. So our work's actually also highly informed by the media equation theory, which claims that when people treat computers, they often turn to treat them as real people, real human beings. So they apply the social norms. Typically, they interact with others in their interaction with computers. So in this case, based on this, we studied a social reciprocity effect in this communication. For example, the social penetration theory says that the self-disclosure is a reciprocity, sharing behavior, right? If one shares more, the other also shares more. So in this case, we were studying what if the chatbot also behave like human and self-disclose their own personal experience like a human, like a real person? What's the effect of encouraging the real users to self-disclose? So we ran a study with 47 participants, and we designed 3 conditions of the chatbot. One is the chatbot really acts just a machine without any human characters. In the other two conditions, the chatbot self-disclose as human, like their personal experiences and their thoughts. And then at different levels, one is at lower level, one is at a higher level with more sensitive information. And we randomly assigned these participants into the 3 conditions interacting with individual chatbot for a month. And we examined what they disclosed with the chatbot, and also how much trust and engagement they perceived with the chatbot interaction. And we found that the chatbots that have self-disclosure, the more self-disclosure the chatbot behaved, the more the participant self-disclosed in the conversation. So there is a reciprocity effect happening between human and the chatbot. Similarly, like how it happened between human and human. Another effect we observed or we found that is the trust transfer, which means that people could transfer their trust from a familiar target to another. In this case, when the trust is built between the human and the chatbot, if more trust is built, then that particular trust can be transferred between the human and some other human users that were introduced by chatbot. So for example, in this case, after we have the participant use the chatbot for like 3 weeks, we let the chatbot introduce a human expert into the conversation. And then we ask the participant if you're willing to share whatever you share with the chatbot to the human experts. And then remember in the previous study, we had the 3 conditions, right? One is the chatbot didn't act like a human. The second is the other 2 conditions, that chatbot act more like human with different level of self-disclosure. And we found that when participants build better trust with the chatbot, they're more willing to share their information. And also when they review whatever they shared with the chatbot, they were less likely to change the content. Sometimes they even add more content into the previous self-disclosure information and to add more details when they wanted to share with a human expert, so that they don't have confusion. Their content didn't introduce confusion. So this work, these 2 works were published in CHI, a top-tier conference, and the CSCW 2020, a premier journal in our HAI domain. So the 2 works I just shared, they're all about dyadic interaction, which means human converse with the chatbot alone without other humans involved in the conversation. So the implications of our findings is that if you're designing a chatbot for maybe campus service to promote student self-disclosure with their mental health status or school lives, you can definitely adopt the designs we have here and make your chatbot behave like maybe a student peer, that the chatbot can also like have a UI UC background, and also share their like if they're freshmen using the chatbot can also act as a freshman. If they're seniors, the chatbot can also act as a senior looking for a career, looking for jobs, and then you can use that kind of designs to promote the interaction with the students, with users. And this can be also applied maybe for counseling services for non-emergency situations. Definitely when emergency situation happens, you want human operators to be involved in this conversation. So that's the dyadic conversation interaction. So we actually reviewed the literature of ACM publications on conversational AI in the past 50 years, more than 50 years. And then the majority of the work were on dyadic interaction, the human AI interaction between the human and the chatbot or the conversational AI. But increasingly, there appeared more works on polyadic interaction, which means there are human-human experiences involved in this human chatbot interaction. I'm going to give some example, but this polyadic interaction is right now is kind of one of the major focus of my lab's research. We're working on what are the challenges we can address by using the conversational AI to facilitate human-human interaction, and what are the best practices of the designs or adopting this, deploying this kind of conversational AI, and what could be long-term effect of using such technologies, and what are the potential pitfalls we should avoid in deploying this kind of technologies. So here I would love to give you an example of one particular study with a specific design so that you can see our methods. Hopefully that could be helpful for your research or for your work as well. So remember the previous two works we were talking about, participants self-disclose to the chatbot. And in this case, imagine you have this chatbot already, and then you have your students self-disclose their personal experience with the chatbot already. And then you can share the data with your counseling services and also coaches, right, or career center services. And once they have the data, they would love to give the guidance or feedback to the students, right? And then they want them to practice some of the skills, for example, maybe time management skills, emotion regulation skills, goal setting skills. And typically those kind of counseling services will love the students to do journaling and to keep track of the progress, right, through journaling practices. But it's really challenging for the service provider. Yes. Yes, Bill? You have a question? Okay, so I'm continuing. You can definitely text in the chat if you have questions, Bill. All right, so imagine you have collected this information, you want to give the guidance, right, for them to practice different skills, but it's really challenging for them to keep one-on-one conversation and also to closely look, follow what the participants or what the students have been practicing, how successful the practices are, what kind of challenges they have, right? So in this case, we're providing this kind of, we're studying this human chatbot interaction where we want to see how closely the participants, the users can follow the feedback or the guidance from the chatbot. And what if we introduce human expert in this conversation? How comparing these two settings, which one is more effective? So this paper is published at CSCW 2021, just presented 2 weeks ago, and feel free to check the original paper. But here is some kind of overview. We apply, particularly for this skill training, this practice, we use gratitude journaling because it has been widely adopted for mental health and also for skill training, and it can improve self-reflection as well. So in this case, here is an example of the interaction design. You can see it very simple. When the chatbot starts conversation, they give the user, the participant, some tasks, some writing tasks to finish, right? And then the second version, the second design would be after they start this conversation, the chatbot introduces another human expert. In this case, they're showing, okay, this is another human expert who can provide you guidance on this gratitude journaling practices. And then the expert will provide the same suggestion as what the chatbot in the other condition, what the chatbot provides. So all the treatments, all the messages or guidance are exactly the same. We're just trying to see with introducing this, human images or these different players into this conversation, how users really perceive the interaction and how much they closely follow the guidance. So here, this is the comparison interface. And then we recruited participants and split them into two groups. One is only with the chatbot, the other is with the human experts involved in the chatbot. And then our research question, the first, how do people interact with the chatbots differently? Second is, how do they perceive the interaction differently? The third is, how do users keep practicing over time differently? So to answer this question, we actually conduct a study over 27 days and then splitting into 3 sessions. The first session is a warm-up session, warm-up phase with 9 days. We just let users to talk with the chatbot with general conversation. In this case, there is no other like human expert involved in this. The reason why we want participants to warm up with the interaction to reduce some kind of novelty effect. The second session is the training phase, where we introduce the human experts and we give specific tasks for participants to practice their journaling skills. Again, those tasks are exactly the same. The third session phase is free will, which means after 9 days of practicing this journaling skill, we let students know that they have the choice of continuing the practice themselves as voluntarily, or they can stop anytime. So we want to see after this training session how much practice they sustain or they continued. So in this study, this text displayed a little bit not very friendly, but anyway, so in this between the study sessions, we take surveys to collect their perception with the interaction before the training and after the training, and also at the end of the study, we have an exit interview to understand their perceived engagement. So there were 35 participants involved in the study, and then 10 female, 10 female, and 25. So basically, like half of the female, half of the male students. They're all college students. They use the chatbot for like 27 days, and then they're paid $7 per day for 20 minutes use of the chatbot. So here is our findings. What we did was, regarding the first question, is about how users interact with chatbot, right? So basically, we collect what they shared in the chats, in the conversation log, and then we annotate the type of self-disclosure they put, or the type, we also count the number of words they put into the chats. And then the results shows that users with the human experts involved in the second condition actually follow the guidance more closely, and they also wrote longer sentences in the journaling practices as well. And also they disclosed their personal feelings and thoughts and emotion, opinions more deeply in the second condition, which probably, actually, sorry, I want to correct, they disclosed significantly deeper thoughts and feelings, but not information. For information, let's say, what they did, how they did it, if it's successful, successfully practiced particular journaling skills, that kind of information, there is no significant difference amount of information they shared between the two conditions. But for the other two, there were significant differences. So remember, we also collect the survey data to gauge the user's perceived experience in terms of engagement and trust with chatbot. This results also show that the second condition performed significantly better. Basically, participants interacting with the chatbot plus human experts in the conversation, they perceived more engagement and more trust with the interaction over time. Also, not very surprisingly, through this process, definitely all the participants, they perceived better self-reflection and better self-awareness. So here is an example. In this case, some participants found the practices definitely made them more aware of the things about themselves, and then they also learned more skills. So definitely we see the promises of such practices for college students, and we can definitely try it out if our university release try to design some of such conversational AI. Okay. Before I run to the third one, I would love to ask the audience. Sorry, I would love to ask the audience to vote. What do you think about the field session? Which condition participant engage or continue the practice more? Which conditions they stop practicing more? Anybody wants to text in the chat? So remember the third question we were asking during the previous session after the training session, if we let the participant to choose if they want to continue the practice or not. And for 9 days, for an additional 9 days, during those 9-day session, do you think the participant who interact with the chatbot only will continue the practice more, or do you think the second condition will practice more? HC, Bill says HC. Okay, HC. Sheena says HC. Anybody else? Yes. Okay. Would you love to type in your why you think HC could be more? I mean, participants in the HC condition will be practicing more. We'd love to type in 1 or 2 or even the keywords that you think they'll be more engaging in that way. Yeah, I think I would love you to think of while you're typing or while you're thinking about that. I saw Bill has a question. Sorry for missing that question just now. I just realized that. So Bill was asking, can you please give us an example of what kind of information that chatbot might share that is reciprocal? And for example, what if I say I'm feeling blue Saturday? How might chatbot respond in a reciprocal fashion? Okay, so I think let me correct what the reciprocal design works, Bill. So it basically the chatbot shares their experience as a human. So which means, for example, the chatbot will say, "Oh, I went to the restaurant last time with my family, and then I had a pleasant experience." So that is the chatbot disclosure. So basically, it's not about how the chatbot respond to the participant self-disclosure that much. It's more about when we conditioning the conversation at the beginning. One version of the chatbot is only giving suggestion. Go to that, for example, go to that restaurant. Go to that restaurant. That's the thing. Recommended this restaurant, right? The second condition would be the restaurant has a good rating, right? Something like that kind of recommendation. And the third one could be, I went to that restaurant last time with my family and it was a pleasant experience. So more like a human based, self-disclosure. Does that make sense, Bill? Yeah, that's the design for the chatbot. Yeah, thank you. And then I see you're sharing one reason. Maybe I will change to chatbot. Okay, you change your answer. Okay, because I can discuss more. Oh, so okay, Bill, when you say because you change to chatbot only because you can disclose more, that why you think you will disclose more with the chatbot only? I think you probably will give a very good answer for that we found out from the study. Feel safer, yes. Actually, I think we had similar findings. Basically, when people converse with chatbot, with a machine, even though their behaviors are like they interact with other real human, but their perception is like they don't feel like the chatbot will judge them, right? Compared to real human or counselors, they feel pressure. Yeah, so Joe said, I think the fact that HC session included generation of greater thoughts and feelings will lead to the participant to continue practicing more later. Yes, because they are revealing content from their inner life. Yes, so Joe, I think you guess is also right. Some participants did feel like because even look at the graphs we just saw, right? They perceived higher engagement in the second condition. So they definitely will, some of the participants will devote more to this interaction, even when they get the choice, right? Yeah, so yeah, please feel free to share your thoughts. Here is the finding. Surprisingly, during the free will phase, the OC, the first condition, the participant continue to practice more. 80% of the participant continue to practice more. However, in the HC group, only 57% then stay. Almost half, stopped doing that. Any guess why? I think, Bill, you already answered part of the findings we had. Anybody else would love to share their thoughts? Is this surprising to you, or this is not really? Yeah, I think I saw Qingning. Qingning, you want to share something? It looks like your speaker is on. Okay. So basically, let me give you some quotes about why the HC participants quit it, right? So definitely one of the reasons were high pressure. So it's more like, okay, during the 9-day session, they're kind of feeling demanded by the human experts, right? They're sharing and following the guidance, and closely they feel like they're watched by the human experts. And then, but suddenly you're telling me, oh, there's no one going to be monitoring my behavior, so I can skip. Then they just skipped, right? So that's the one, could be explaining a good portion of the participants' choices. The second reason why they stopped was because they also think about high expectations from the experts, right? Because when they did the practices, they're more following others' guidance. They want to be more closely following the other instead of their own personal choices. So they feel like sometimes also because the coach, in that case, they provided exactly the same condition because we want to control the condition. That's why the guidance provided by the coach in the HC condition and OC condition remain the same, right? So that's why some participants just feel like the messages were not customized to their situation, so they didn't pay attention to the responses. So that's what, once they feel like, oh, they have the free choice, they would love to do their own stuff. Yeah. So I see Joe says it's surprising, but Bill's idea that OC is safer makes sense. Yes, actually, that's a also kind of well-documented findings in this literature that when people share with a chatbot or talk with chatbot, they feel safer. And Shima says, I was thinking the HC code would have been more personalized. Yes, Shima, actually, for this particular study, because we want to, as I mentioned, we want to control the condition. That's why they cannot customize too much, right? If they customize, then you don't really know is the customization make the difference, or is the introduction of the human expert, that those kind of factor, the flavor, right? The different player in the conversation make a difference. So we want to control that. Yeah. So that's somewhat not as much active listening from HC. So I have to say, active listening strategies can be implemented in both conditions. So for example, let's say if the participants share that I practice this skill or I failed to practice this skill, just that one sentence, right? Active listening strategy can be applied here, asking the participant, what are the reasons, right? What made you feel like not practicing? And then when did you try it? Something like that. The active listening more like I'm not really give so much feedback to what you have shared with me, but more about eliciting more content by asking questions. Yeah, Bill says, do the people know they are talking to a machine? Bill, that's a great question. No, in that condition, we're actually intentionally to tell the participants that your coaches actually give you that kind of feedback. So they look at the content. It's a good line in that case, but this particular situation, if you want to study certain effect, you want to simulate that situation. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. All right. So any other questions so far regarding this? Yeah. And so if I ask you, given these findings, what would you be, what kind of implication you have for designing a conversational AI for some kind of skill training so far? So for example, in this case, we have the finding that they practice more when human experts in place, right? In this picture, and also they perceive the more engagement. But then once they have the free will, the results is kind of contradictory to their previous behavior, right? They stop the practicing. But technically speaking, if we're the service provider, we want them to practice, to continue, right? So what would be your implication? If you're writing this paper, given these results, what do you think would be what would be the insight other scholars or other system designers should draw from these results? I'm going to give you share my answers, but I'd love to see if other audience have some thoughts as well. Or is it a tough question? Any thoughts? Do you think the results is contradictory or not? If not, maybe we can just directly apply the HC design, right? Having the HC icon there through the whole training session. So that is one. But that also result in high pressure perceived by the participants, right? So yes, help each participant feel their specific issues are being heard and addressed. So that actually went back to the very beginning, like the scale up this one-on-one conversation, right? So either you design the conversational AI to be able to personalize their suggestions, their guidance. Yes, so based on this, you're right. They should be receiving personalized and specific guidance regarding their context. And what other implications you might think? So I would love to share one idea maybe we were thinking about. So in this case, we observed that for some participants, if they're intrinsically motivated to practice something, right? For example, some of the courses given by the schools or different departments, they're trying to help students develop the different skills, right? Let's say time management, goal setting, and for career job interviews. And some of the participants, some of the students, they're really motivated to do that. So they came to the class without really being forced to do that. In that case, we can see a potential more opportunity to just release the chatbot, give them the tools, and give them the guidance. In that way, they're following this guidance anyway, right? Without pressure from any human intervention. But for certain situations, let's say some students may find challenging to continue or to excel in the academic performance, to have better academic performance. In that case, they may need more nurturing from coaches or for content services. In that case, it might be better to warm up the interaction, start building relationship, getting the trust with the students, and then identifying the situations where they need more customized feedback. So yeah, so in that case, I think you can introduce, basically what I'm trying to say is the implication we have in here is you have to see the nature of the participants, their intrinsic motivation, their drives when they have this interaction. The second is also the type of coaching services you're providing. Some of the coaching services is more like swimming, right? Once you know how to swim, you probably wouldn't sink in the water. But for some other kind of skills, you might want to condition yourself in that environment a little bit more regularly, or every day, or more constantly, frequently. So in that case, if we want long-term practice, we may want to get the chatbot, right, to be in this, to help that with that, to facilitate that. But if it's short term and for maybe more like personalized suggestions, we can get the human intervention more in the picture. Yeah, I see Qingying Wang says, ask question. I wonder if introducing human expert at different stages of self-disclosure would change outcome. Is that a variable controlled through the study? Okay, that's a very good question, Qingying. I wonder if you have psychology background or any background. So remember I was talking about 3 studies. In the second study, I mentioned that after conversing with the chatbot from a well, the chatbot, after the participant interact with the chatbot from a well, the chatbot introduced a human expert and asked the chatbot to share with the human expert. So in that case, yes, there is a different stage were introduced. So for example, in that stage, they already built the trust, right? The participant already built some level of trust, or without didn't build the trust with the chatbot. So when you introduce the human expert at that case, in that case, then the trust can be carried over, right? But if you don't have the trust with the participants yet, introducing human expert could, if the human expert did not have the bandwidth to cultivate that relationship through chat, then maybe introducing them will temper the situation because the participant didn't perceive the engagement with the human expert either way, right? So that's my gut feeling, like you might want to use the chatbot technologies to bootstrap some kind of conversation, collecting some information at the beginning, and then started to see the nature of the characteristics of the human user, and then introduce the human expert at different stages through the conversation. Maybe they found the participants can practice the skill without so much, push. Then maybe you don't really need a human expert in that case, right? Is that variable control throughout the study? Yeah, I guess we want to say yes. Yeah, they remain the same through the different studies. We want to control that. We don't. We have limited participants to try to put into more conditions. Does that answer your question, Qingying? Yeah, feel free to ask. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions so far? I think yes. Joseph, I would love to know what kind of feedback the participants were looking for. Perhaps they wanted an external assessment of how they were doing, or did they want an acknowledgement that they were understood or sympathy? If they got that, they could. Oh my goodness, this is perfect question. Joe, I don't know your background. I'm not sure. It looks like you're definitely into this kind of space for a while. So yeah, you have several questions. Let me try to answer one by one. Okay. So the first one is what kind of feedback they're looking for. So in this, so far I share with you about our 3 studies. Actually, there was another one we have finished and then under review at this moment. I didn't include here, which could be answering your first question about the feedback. It's basically about, let's say if one participant practice this kind of gratitude journaling practices, right? And then they found that it's not helpful after they practice that. If the chatbot asks them, do you feel better or something like that? Do you feel like this is helpful, and then they don't feel like, oh, I didn't feel like this helpful, this practice is helpful. And then the feedback could be, oh, in the fourth work, in the under review work, we actually shared other participants feedback. For example, some of the participants successfully practiced the skill, the training for several days, and then they found the best practices, or they found other tactics to add to this training. And then we actually, with those participants' permission, we share those with the feedback or their journaling, their content with other participants who may look for feedback. So that in that case, the feedback is more like a social support. It's more like the practices, the real life experiences, or the real practices, pros and cons and outcomes from other peers. So in that case, we provide some of the feedback. Hope that helps answer your first question. Yeah. External assessment, yes. So definitely it's like we ask them to rate from 1 to 5 about how helpful it is. The second question is, did they, thank you. And did they want an acknowledgement that they were understood? Yeah, as I mentioned, one of the feedback, the participant said that they don't feel like, he didn't feel like the human expert acknowledged that. In that case, yeah, that was a failure in that situation because we want to control the language. So they didn't acknowledge that much. That comes to your next question about sympathy, right? How to show, you want to, in the conversation, ideally, the chatbot, also the human expert, should show some kind of empathy. Let's say, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that you didn't practice well yet. Maybe let's give another try. Or sometimes they can say, this practice is going to be a little bit challenging, taking a little bit more time. So prepare for that. So I agree with you. Empathy is great topic, or showing compassion is another major topic in the human AI interaction. And yeah, so if they got that, would they continue practicing? I definitely see potential of that in any interaction. If you show more understanding, show more empathy, and give compassion, I would say it improves the engagement. It also improves the intimacy. I think I didn't mention the results regarding the perceived intimacy with human AI interaction. This particular research literature, research space, people study how users perceive the intimate relationship with the AI technologies as well. So in this case, we actually ask participants to evaluate their perceived intimacy with the chatbot. And in all the conditions we designed with a deeper self-disclosure of the chatbot, with human involved in this conversation, they all perceived a higher intimacy in that case. Yeah, so your background is written communication. Cool. Yeah, that's definitely. Actually, the showing the compassion, empathy is applied in some other works we are working on right now. So far we have 10 minutes. Any other questions? If not, I can probably share one more work, not about journaling practices, but more about also very relevant to campus life, is for community safety reporting. The reason why I introduced that, because I actually have my student, Dr. Student, I see him in this audience, China Yin and Yiren Liu, so he is here. Yeah, so okay, so before I introduce this, I want to answer Bill's question about what are the most promising ideal issues as we think about the future. What are the most promising idea? I think the most promising idea is human AI collaboration. That has been the hot topic in this area. And that actually, if you flip the coin, human AI collaboration to enable something, to enable new services, but the issues of that is how they collaborate. how they collaborate well, right? So I guess that answered all your question about human AI collaboration. So in this case, you can see we already show some evidence that the AI technology or the chatbot, right, itself can facilitate certain practices, humans practices like skill training, right, can deliver certain guidance, can answer some questions, but they have limitations, right, in terms of customized messages, empathy, and also storytelling, those kind of relationship building, intimacy. So human expert, with that just human involvement, other people perceive, the user will perceive more engagement, some kind of different intimate or intimate differences in this relationship building, right? So they perceive higher pressure from when human involved in this. But how do you leverage that pressure to improve the collaboration between humans and different stakeholders? That's what we're working on. Hopefully that answered part of your question, Bill. The human AI collaboration. Actually, I would love to continue the rest of the 2 slides by touching upon the idea about human AI collaboration. So we have been working on another team of students of mine. They're working on how to design this conversational AI to facilitate community risk reporting. So in this case, you can see the administrator of the Department of Public Safety or other safety service providers, they need to be trained as well. They need to give good quality, high quality services to their community members when they report community risks or safety incidents, right? But many of them may not give the consistent languages or may forget some of the questions they should ask with the incidents. So the reports may be at lower quality, right? May not have enough information of the incidents. And also, back to Joe's question, empathy, emotional labor is highly involved in this kind of services as well. Not only for any public service provider, when they provide services to community members, they have to show empathy, they have to show understanding and patience, right? And so in this case, how this chatbot, how this conversational AI machines not only provide 24-hour 7-day service, provide consistent answers, provide immediate response, but also can work with humans to provide customized language, show empathy to the situation. So that is something we're working on. The reason why we have certain advantage of working on this is I have a collaboration with industry companies who provided us like 6 years of logs of safety reporting from more than 200 institutions of higher education. So we analyzed their system reporting log and found that there are a lot of mismatch between the expectations between community members and service providers, and then the service provider asking questions also at not the same level of details and not the same level of quality. So then we're actually designing the chatbot in certain situations. In this case, the first scenario could be, let's say you log in your UC's website, right? They pop up actually the University of Department of Public Safety website, and then they pop up a chatbot, and then anybody can use this chatbot to send anonymous report. So in this case, you can see behind the scene, maybe there is a dispatcher watching, not only watching, receiving calls and getting other kind of reports, but also looking at the tickets or the conversation from different chatbot stream. And then the particular chatbot can recommend the dispatchers about the questions or replies they can send to the users, right? But in the middle of this conversation, the dispatcher can customize the messages and showing compassion as well. So, and also ask more details that maybe the conversational AI didn't catch from the dialogue. So another situation could be Safer Illinois app, and someone using that to report something, and then as Joe, you're talking about active listening. Here, we're actually applying active listening strategies, basically labeling the emotions or the conversations, and then providing customized language to show compassion, and then also to share additional information for users to address their inquiries. So I guess those are the situations we're trying to expand the particular how to say design into different application domains. To basically, the goal is trying to enable this human AI collaboration for different stakeholders to work together to co-create new services for better community well-being. Yeah. So I guess I have 3 minutes left. These are the students have been working with me. Some of them are alumni and some of them from industry collaborators. And my work has been funded by National Science Foundation, and Japan NTT Research Lab, and also the Center for Cognitive Computing and System Research. Yes, so any more questions from the audience? Oh, yeah, any more questions? Trying to.
Yes, please, if you have a question, now is the time, so.
Yeah.
I think we had a lot of questions, and that was a very good presentation. Thank you, Ian, for presenting on this. And I think there are a lot of things that we can sort of follow up on, some loose threads, you know, Rockware related. And so I look forward to that. And if anyone has any, you know, if they want to get involved more, you know, contact me or contact you to further this conversation. So thank you very much for your comments again. And I just wanted to announce.
Yeah, so one last sharing is we're actually designing a conversational AI for peer mentoring. Basically, students give feedback to other students written up or essays. So we already have the prototype. Actually, Ian, again, when I'm sitting in the audience in the Zoom, he actually leads that development, and we're releasing that prototype for courses where they the courses where the instructor collect the assignments from students, but it's too large class is a good. If it's large class, they cannot grade each assignments like at high, fine-tune granularity. They can use our systems to conduct this peer grading. Like students can give feedback to other students, but there is a guidance about how you provide high-quality feedback to others writing. Yeah. Bill says, would you like to integrate this new system into the? Of course, Bill. I've been waiting for that for long. Yeah, definitely. Anytime, I'm open to that conversation. Yeah.
Thank you once again. And just before we go, I'd like to mention that next week is our final lecture of the series for this fall. We're going to have Peter Ondish, Dr. Peter Ondish, who was supposed to present on the 20th of October, but there were some technical difficulties. Pete's from the Center for Social and Behavioral Sciences, and I'll be talking on social science and the Rockwire platform. And I'll send out some invites and some advertisements later this week and next week. So thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank you for the invitation, and thank you for your time, and look forward to continue our conversation. Yeah.
Yes, I do too. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a good week.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.